How's it going, friends, and welcome to the channel. In this video we are going to be looking at Airfix's 1/48 Anson and adding some pointless detail that nobody's going to see, seeing if Eduard's big sunset is worth it, and adding a little bit of rigging. So grab yourself a brew and a bicky and let's get into it. So this is the first release of the Avro Anson, and I've been looking forward to this for quite a while to do because it looks like an absolutely fantastic kit and lots of little bits and bobs and details. Seen it when it first released and thought I've really got to do this kit. Now again, with most of Airfix's newer releases, goes together generally really nice. There's a few issues, but we'll get onto that. But of course, obviously, we're going to be starting in the cockpit, well, interior area, I suppose we'll call it. So we started off, as you can see, me doing a few seats. They come up in multiple parts. The only one was not an issue, but the only one was a bit of a pain was that first one with the two halves. As you can see, I used a bit of sprue goo to just to hide that seam down the centre. So at this point, in the main cockpit area, we'll call it cockpit area, it's going to be easier. There's not a lot of this is kind of like sub-assembly sort of stuff really, but as you can see, I've put the main wing spar on. There's another one at it's not really a wing spar, but it sort of helps the wings go on. We've got the nav's plotting table that will be glued in properly later on. Some of the instruments, they've all got really nice detail until I scrubbed them off, but we'll get to that in a little bit because I've bought Eduard's big sin set for this. So we've got a lot of photo etch and a good chunk of resin in there as well. One of which is the Lewis gun upgrades. Now these ones are okay. They are inside the aircraft, so you don't see them all overly that well, even though they are in the windows. But these ones are absolutely beautiful detail. They are a lot more accurate than you can get in, slow molding. It is one of the things with slow molding, there is limitations, but with obviously resin you can get better, finer and more exact detail. So the general build up inside is quite minimal in a roundabout way, so we get onto painting really quickly. I decided to go a little bit of a different colour with the cockpit. I've actually used XF73, which is kind of a bit of a IDF green. It is a little bit darker, but I just wanted to do a slightly different colour for a change. I know it's not right, but I think it looks okay, to be honest. As you can see, I've done a lot of scratch work inside, and I've decided I'm trying to use oils more often for my washes rather than using ready mixed stuff. So for this I used raw umber, black, and I think I used a bit of grey in there. Again, just for something a little bit different, a little bit more of a grimy kind of look, and just something that's a little bit more lived in. Now we can start adding some of the photo etch stuff. Now, one thing I do like about Eduard's sort of newer stuff is that you kind of have the glazing in there as well, like the bezel glazing. You just put another piece over the top for the actual bezels themselves. But again, the issue I'm starting to come across with them more and more these days is that the colour matching is just seemingly worse. As you see, there was a lot of green panel there. That technically is probably the right colour, or closer to the right colour, but even the blacks aren't as black as they used to be. So I'm thinking now that I'm going to start looking at more of the Quinta Studio stuff, which I found afterwards, which I think I'm going to look at using. They seem to be a lot better and more accurate. But I'm still happy with these ones in a way. I did quite like the navigator's table items there, and as you can see, I've had to put the sort of stationary sort of holder. I had to cut that off, paint it separately and stick it back on. So now we move on to probably one of the most pointless things I actually bothered to do with this. I decided, because there's a lot of glazing, I thought I'd add some wiring in. In part I'm glad I did, because you can see it at the front of the cockpit there, but the rest of it was pretty pointless. You can't see it at all. But I don't know, it's one of those things we do. So for this I've used lead wire and just super glued it in. It's very nice and flexible, as you've seen, to be able to put it into place. And I've used some masking tape for the sort of retaining clips. I'm not quite sure what they're actually called, but yeah, we'll go with retaining clips, and I've painted them afterwards. Seat belts as well, as always, because it just looks better with seat belts. And then another wash across everything to tie it all in. But all the same with all the parts, I had to colour match again and add those in. But I was happy with them in the end. It's just a lot easier when you don't have to actually need to do that. But there we go. As you can see there as well, I've painted up the wiring again just to make them sort of pop out a little bit. So those front ones you will see a lot easier in the finished build. Main interior framework goes in. It goes in actually quite nicely. It's just getting everything all into the right positions, but generally actually I probably made it look a lot harder than it actually is, I think, in this bit, but it does actually go together really nicely. And actually, just as a piece on its own, actually, he's quite nice. Actually, I really like it. So one of my followers from Facebook had said, you know, you can see the rear instrument panel quite clearly when the glass is in. Actually, this is kind of true. It depends on which glazing that you put on. I've gone for sort of like the later one, and you don't see any of it, so that was also another waste of time. But if you are going to do it with the later one, you want to put that in, maybe put some wine in there just to show the back of the instrument panel. Might be a good idea there if you want to. Obviously, again, I use lead wire for this. As you can see, the Lewis guns all painted up. I had to put a small hole in the frame that they go into, because they already come on kind of like posts for them to go, so all you have to do is just make a little hole for them to go in. As you'd seen earlier on, come with a load of spare ammo drums. I wasn't really sure where most of these went. I struggled to find photos, so they kind of went into where I thought was sort of like the logical place for them. I think actually the ones in the rear turret actually are right, but it was a bit of guesswork. All the control surfaces are movable. I don't know why I've put this bit in here, but I have. But as you can see, if you glue everything right, you can make everything posable. The undercarriage wells are also nicely detailed. You're not going to really see them, to be honest with you, but it's nice to know that they are detailed. Now, one thing I kind of did was drilled out the back of these lamps, because the sort of central frame part was quite thick, so I milled out the back of it and made them at the right sort of size that they should be, because this obviously originally is a full plastic part. Put a bit of clear acetate in the back. I also put some chrome pen marker over the back to give the sort of like reflective part of the lamp, just make it look right, basically, which I tend to do a lot on any headlights or anything like that. I always put some silver or chrome back in, because it just looks right with the reflector. Now here comes my sort of first problem. For some reason my lower wing was, both sides actually, were quite warped. Not sure why. I suppose they've just been taken out of the mould a little bit too quickly. They slightly were misaligned with the lights, but with a bit of gluing and holding and some sanding, I actually managed to get all this all out and looking fine. So it wasn't actually really an issue, it was just some basic modelling that I had to do. The engine nacelles, I had a little bit of a gap, more of a gap on the two sides on the one and just one on the other. Not quite sure why, but I know Luke from Matt Models had a similar issue. But again, a bit of plasticard in there, sanded it through out and blended it in nicely. So at this point I was ready for painting, so it was time to start adding the glazing. The door side of the clear framework on the one side had a couple of decals to go in. You're not really going to see these, but you know, I like putting decals in, so I did. I did have a bit of an issue with the glazing. It seems to be a repeating thing for this year. While I was cleaning the glass up, I broke the one side in half. Massively frustrating. I was going to get in touch with Airfix to replace this, but I decided I was going to fix it myself. Now there are two of these side clear panels, because there's two different types of front cockpit, and they finish differently as they get to the main windscreen, if you like. So I just sort of spliced them. You can kind of see it in the end result, but it's not overly obvious, so it's a little bit frustrating. But again, that was my own fault. I am now starting to wear gloves with glazing, because I just can't be having mucky prints all on the inside, not like the Lancaster. There's also an instrument to go up in the front of the front windscreen, so I also added a little bit more wiring there again as well, using the same lead wire and masking tape for those sort of like retaining clips, because these are kind of going to be seen in the front, so I thought, yeah, why not, let's go ahead and do that. Once that was all fitted into place, I found another gap. I'm not quite sure why, but I did. So again, same as before, wedge a card in there, glued it in, cut it off, sanded it back, and got it nice and flush. I did have to put, I think I had to put another panel line in there to make it look right, as it should be. So a little bit annoying, but it's just, yeah, one of those things, a bit of basic modelling. It wasn't going to kill me, so yeah, a bit frustrated, but there you go. Now, quickly as we come into the engines, because they come in this big sin set. See the old ones? The old ones they're fine, they're reasonable, and to be honest with you, unless you're going to have the cowlings off, I wouldn't bother with the engines, because you don't see all that much of them, and these were a colossal pain in the backside to fit in. But I built the engine up anyway. It was something I didn't find out until a bit later on. I added some wires in there for the, you know, the, what do you call them? What are they called? Spark plugs. So for these, I just used some stripped down electrical wire for this. Eduard, actually, they are quite nice to detail. They've even shown you where sort of like the clamping part is for those leads, so it makes it a lot easier for positioning. The only problem is just trying to fit them on the end of where the spark plug is. So that was a bit difficult. I did try and drill them out, but it didn't really work very well. So I did find out later on that the heads need to be taken off. As you can see on the left hand side, you can see the little pin marks for the original ones to go in, and you can see on the right hand side one that I had to shave an absolute shed load of that out to get these to fit a lot better. As you can see, once the cowlings are on, you don't see that much of it. So like I said, unless you're going to have the engine cowls off, I wouldn't bother getting the engines for the kit. Also within the kit, you can see we've got these nice Dunlop tyres with the print on there, really nice. All this stuff you can get all separately. I just decided to get the whole set all together. I think actually I had to get the set belts completely separately though, which was annoying. But yeah, I'd just get the bits that you feel that you want to put in the kit. So the tyres are nice, they're good to put on. Seat belts, again the instrument panel, maybe look at Quinta, but then again they also do the seat belts for that. So maybe for the interior, Quinta Studios, and for the tyres, just whatever you can get, I suppose. But and the weapons, but I wouldn't bother really with the rest. Now, while I do my bit of pre-shading on black basing, which I'm so glad I managed to get some Mr. Surface of black, this stuff's like rocking or shit to get hold of, I want to say a quick thank you to my channel members. Saki Mack in the Brew and Bicky level, Steve Nilsson, Darren Hall, and John Alec from John Alec Scale Modelling in the Weathering level. Thank you guys ever so much for supporting the channel. It's massively appreciated. If you guys would like to help the channel further, there are links in the description down below, but of course, as always, liking, subscribing and just watching the videos is also a great help to the channel. So thank you guys ever so much for that. So as we move on to the camo, I did this all freehand for, again, just a little bit of a change. So I'm using my Gaahleri airbrush, and I've been using this for quite a while now. I absolutely love using it. This one's the 98D. I do find it really good for these sort of things, keeping it nice and close and tight, gives you these nice lines. So if you're interested in these airbrushes, I've got video on these, and there's links in the description as well for discount codes and offers. The wash again is exactly the same as we used for the interior. Just pretty much slap it on as you would normally, and use a paper towel or something on the lines of that with a bit that I've used quite a lot, as you can see in this, but a little bit of white spirit, and it will remove it from the main aircraft, and usually should leave it within the recesses. But if not, you can always go back over and do it again. I'm trying to use more oils a bit more often, as I said before, because you know you can get them kind of cheap, and then they do last a long time. It's better than forking out on pre-mixed stuff. After that, I went back and did what I should have done before and put the decals on, because for some reason I got a bit excited and completely forgot. So went back, put the decals on. Normally this tends to sort of have a bit of a silvering effect sometimes. I think it's like the thinners, but I managed to get them down. They look good, so I was happy with that. Now I've gone quite light on the weather on this in a fashion. It's not a frontline fighting aircraft, so I didn't see the point in really going too heavy on it. So all I did was I lightened the previous colours of the obviously the original paint, and just did some light scratching basically, which is the same what I would have done if I'd done anything heavier, just using a lighter colour instead. It gives a nice sort of worn effect without going too heavy. I also had to repaint the engines because I'd put them on the wrong way, and yeah, that was a bit annoying because I had to try and match the colours up, which I didn't do a very good job on. And as you can see, the 3D printed forward facing gun, which again was part of the big Sing kit, goes into place nicely. And at this point it's starting to put on the last sort of few little details that I'd left off so I could paint them separately. So we've got the windscreen wipers. I've also put some wiring again for the wiring. As you can see in certain bits there's you know, a bit of a horrible sort of finish over the front. That's where the original wire went. I sort of purposely left that so I could see exactly where it should have gone. Drilled a couple of small holes in so they'd fit in and look like they're actually part of the unit rather than just sort of sticking them on, because it just wouldn't look quite as good. So, but this worked out quite nicely. I was quite happy with that, and looked a bit more realistic than the moulded part. I mean, the moulded part on it was fine really, but this is just me being a bit finicky. I decided to replace the top navigation light, and all I did with that was I used some heated up clear sprue. Now some of the photo etch pieces that I've used in the past, they have like little patterns down the side so you can use them for moulding parts. So I'd got like a round one, so I just heated up the sprue till it was sort of getting all a bit gooey and runny, and then just forced it in, and it's sort of domed over so it gives a nice lens look, and I just stuck that on top. As we move on to the final bits, really was just putting the turret into place. Again, we had a resin upgrade bluish gun for that. This fits very nicely, just plonks in. Don't really need to glue it if you don't want to. And the last bit was doing the antenna wire. For this I'm using MIG Ammo's elastic rigging. It's very similar to the sort of like the Easy Line stuff. It's a 0.3 if I remember rightly. And quite simply super glue it at one end of the mast and then run it to the other end and hold it. If you're using just straight up super glue, I mean, you can see the one in the background there, it's just some cheap stuff I've got off the Tinternet, and it dries quite quickly. And after that I'd used a bit of black super glue to cover the connection between the two, and I used the same across the horizontal stabilizer wing bit, and yeah, just sort of connects through. I actually run it straight the way through because the way it does on the plan, because they actually give you a plan where all the rigging needs to go and how it needs to go, which is a really nice touch from Airfix. I think that's something that should go in pretty much most kits really, if you decide to want to do any rigging or anything like that. I think it's really good having the plans there so you know what you need to do. So there we go, my friends, it's nearly time to show you the finished build. I hope you have enjoyed this little video. It's been a nice quick short sweet video, this one, but yeah, fantastic builds. You know, okay, a couple of issues, but again, a bit of a basic modelling. It's, you know, it's nothing major. I know, and a lot of people are probably going to say, you know, it should be right in the first place, and I suppose in a way yes, but the problem is, have we become too accustomed to too good at kits these days, and we're expecting quite a lot out of the builds? Don't know. I mean, yeah, I suppose we are really, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. But yeah, again, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you'd like to help support the channel in any which way, whether it's liking, subscribing, obviously putting bell notifications on so you know when the next video is about. I know they've been a bit slack over the last, well, this year, in all honesty. Hopefully we can pick that up a bit better into the new year. Fingers crossed anyway. I'm not going to make any promises. But of course, you can also help further. There are links in descriptions down below to channel memberships and the Gaahleri Airbrush, which has an affiliate link as well as a discount code. So anyway, that's enough of me rabbiting on. Again, thanks ever so much for watching. I generally do hope you have enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you think and how I've done the build. And yeah, enjoy. And here it is. And I'll catch you again soon.